Since this administration is so concerned about knowing the root causes of things, I thought you might be interested in knowing the root causes of homelessness. According to World Population Review, the top 4 causes of homelessness in order are lack of affordable housing, unemployment, poverty, and low wages. I'm going to set lack of affordable housing to the side for a minute because 3/4 of the problem seem to all be related to income. All the rest of these are just different ways to describe poverty. But how can that be? Didn't the left already declare a war on poverty? In fact, I'm sure of it. In 1964, Democrat Lyndon B. Johnson gave a speech declaring his official war on poverty.
And this administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America.
This speech was given in response to a poverty rate of 19% back then. I want you to notice the verbiage Johnson uses in his speech.
Better schools, and better health, and better homes, and better training, and better job opportunities.
He proposes that everything about poverty be better, just like Biden. And also, just like Biden,
better schools.
The schools suck. I went to Crenshaw High School in South Central. Right now, 3%, that's not a typo, 3% of kids can do math at grade level.
Nothing is better. In fact, it's worse than before the Democrats stepped in to fix it. So technically, this is the second time Build Back Better has failed. Have you noticed that 50+ years from its inception, no one is suggesting that the Apollo program was a failure? The Apollo program was an unchallenged success because it accomplished its stated goal, to land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth. The stated goal of the war on poverty, as enunciated by Lyndon B. Johnson on January 8, 1964, was not only to relieve the symptom of poverty, but to cure it, and above all, to prevent it. Measured against this objective, the war on poverty has not just been a failure, it's been a catastrophe. It was supposed to help America's poor become self-sufficient, and it has made them dependent and dysfunctional. We already know it's a failure, but the question is, by how much? How much would you guess Americans have spent fighting this so-called war on poverty? Keep in mind, it's been nearly 60 years, so how much would you guess government has spent of our money? You already know the government spends no less than $1 billion on anything, and you know it's been nearly 60 years, so what would you guess? 60 billion fighting poverty? Would you like to double that to 120 billion? How about quadruple that? 240 billion? The last numbers that I was able to find shows that we as a country have spent $23 trillion fighting poverty. 23 trillion. And the most leftist state in our union, California, is leading the way in homelessness and therefore poverty. How can that be? 23 trillion is 3 times the cost of all military wars since the American Revolution. The left's solution to almost everything is to throw more money at it. That's what Lyndon B. Johnson did in the 60s, and it's costing us over 23 trillion, and that's what Joe Biden is doing now, and it's the worst inflation rate in over 40 years. The left refuses to acknowledge that there are other ways of handling an issue besides throwing more money at it. Then what's the solution, you ask? Democrats would say that's the problem with Republicans, is that we complain about Democrat policies and we don't have any policies of our own, right? Not true. Treating people like adults is a policy. The question nobody ever seems to ask is, what were the poverty rates before Lyndon Johnson declared war on them? Do you know? If you followed my channel from the beginning, then you know I mentioned economist Dr. Thomas Sowell quite frequently. Larry Elder wrote an article for the Baltimore Sun where he addressed this very subject. According to Thomas Sowell's research, Democrats have wasted both time and money trying to close this wealth gap between blacks and whites. Truth be told, the income gap closed faster before the war than after the war. The poverty rate among black families fell from 87% in 1940 to 47% in 1960, during an era of virtually no major civil rights legislation or anti-poverty programs. It dropped another 17 percentage points during the decade of the 1960s and 1 percentage point during the 1970s. But this continuation of the previous trend was neither unprecedented nor something to be arbitrarily attributed to the programs like the War on Poverty. Can we do the math on this really quickly? Let's read that quote again. So in 1940, the poverty rate for black families was 87%, then it dropped to 47% in 1960. Can we pause right here? Keep in mind, in 1960, there was no war on poverty yet. From 87% to 47% represents a 46% decline in poverty during the 20 years prior to the Democrats fixing poverty. 46% decline in poverty. Now it says it dropped an additional 17 percentage point during the decade of the 60s and an additional percentage point during the decade of the 70s for a total of 18 percentage points. If you subtract 18 from 47, now that means the poverty rate is down to 29%. And some of these years, the mid-60s, are the years when Lyndon B. Johnson fixed poverty. Well, from 47% to 29% is a 38% decrease in poverty. Can I translate this for you? If poverty was already falling at a rate of 46% before you got there, and then after you fixed it, suddenly it's falling at a rate of 38%, that means all you did was interfere with progress. Poverty was already falling 8% faster and for free before you decided to declare war on it.